Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into a really interesting situation. It's about this possibility of a temporary Air Force One.
Yeah, it's quite the story.
We've got some material here outlining a recent suggestion, and, well, the reactions it's generated have been pretty strong.
Definitely.
So our goal today is to really unpack this, sort of figure out what's driving the idea, and understand all the different angles, the complexities involved with this potential aircraft.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here, I think, is how a seemingly straightforward logistical issue, basically, needing a new plane, it just bumps up against presidential history, some pretty serious technical hurdles, and naturally, the political landscape.
Always the politics.
Always. The sources we have really give us a good look at all those moving parts.
Okay, so let's jump right into the core of it then. Former President Trump, apparently on his podcast, suggested that the U.S. should accept a donated Boeing 747-8 from Qatar
From Qatar.
to serve as a temporary Air Force One. What were your initial thoughts on why this came up now, given the whole situation with the fleet?
Well, the timing is definitely key. We know there have been these, significant delays with the two new official Air Force One replacements.
Right, the ones that are supposed to be coming.
Exactly. Also, Boeing 747-8s. But their delivery might not even happen until after 2029. That's quite a wait.
Wow, yeah.
And like the article points out, the former president has definitely voiced his, let's say, dissatisfaction with the current plane. It's, 35 years old now? Served 5 presidents.
5 presidents, yeah. That's a long service life for such a critical aircraft.
It really is. So you can see the desire for something more modern is certainly a factor in this suggestion.
Right. Makes sense. It's like any complex piece of machinery, especially one that old, the upkeep just gets harder and harder, I imagine.
Absolutely.
Now, the former president defended this idea. He said it would be stupid to turn down a free airplane.
The free aspect.
Yeah. And he mentioned it would be donated to the Department of Defense, and importantly, that he wouldn't personally use it after leaving office. Which is interesting because didn't we hear earlier talk about it maybe going to his presidential library?
That was reported, yes. So this shift in the stated destination, from potentially a library to the DoD, that's notable.
It really is. It adds another layer, doesn't it?
It does. It sort of reframes the proposal slightly, moving it away from a personal legacy piece towards, supposedly addressing an immediate government need. Still raises questions, though.
Oh, definitely. And no surprise here, this whole suggestion sparked some really strong opinions, particularly from Democrats.
Predictably, yes.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, for instance, he didn't mince words, called it corruption,
Strong language.
said it would create conflicts of interest, and even implied the presidency was for sale.
Wow.
And he wants to bring it to a Senate vote. It just shows how quickly something like buying or accepting an airplane can get tangled up in politics.
It really does. I mean, accepting any significant gift, especially from a foreign government when it involves the president, it inevitably raises flags.
Flags about influence, right?
Exactly. Potential influence, the appearance of impropriety, the optics, as they say, are a huge part of the debate here.
So let's get into the technical side a bit. It's important to understand this Qatari plane, the proposed temporary one, it's the same basic model, a Boeing 747-8, as the two official replacements that are delayed.
Correct. Same airframe, fundamentally.
But the huge difference, as the sources make clear, is in the modifications, the massive modifications being done to the official planes.
Right.
What exactly makes those mods so time-consuming and, frankly, so expensive?
Okay, so this is key. These aren't just, putting in nicer seats or better Wi-Fi.
No, I guess not.
Not at all. The official Air Force One planes are being rebuilt, essentially, into highly specialized command centers, flying White Houses, basically.
Yeah.
This means incredibly advanced, secure communication systems, things most planes just don't have. Sophisticated self-defense capabilities, think missile evasion, countermeasures.
Right. Stuff you need if you're the president.
Absolutely critical. And they need the ability to withstand an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP.
The EMP hardening.
Exactly. That's a huge engineering challenge, shielding the aircraft and its systems against a massive energy burst that could fry normal electronics.
So these are not off-the-shelf parts?
Definitely not. It requires immense engineering, integrating all these systems, testing them rigorously. It all takes a lot of time and, yes, a lot of money.
So same plane model, but worlds apart in capability.
Precisely. It's like comparing a standard family car to, I don't know, a tank. They might both drive, but their purpose and insides are completely different.
That's a good analogy. And the money side.
Yeah.
Wow. The cost to modify these two planes is, well, way beyond what a normal 747 would cost, which is already around $400 million, right?
Oh, far beyond. And the article points out something else important. Boeing's already taken a multi-billion-dollar loss on this project.
A loss. How?
Because of a fixed price contract they signed during the former president's first term, they agreed to a price, and now the costs have spiraled way past that.
Ouch. So you can see how a deal that maybe looked good up front has these huge ripple effects, delays, financial strain on the contractor.
Absolutely. That fixed price deal has likely put enormous pressure on Boeing. It might even be a factor in the delays we're seeing now. It just highlights the risks in these super specialized custom defense projects. Predicting every cost up front is almost impossible.
And then, adding another wrinkle, Elon Musk apparently tried to get involved, trying to push Boeing to speed things up.
Yeah, that was reported. Figures like Musk, known for pushing innovation and speed, might look at this and think, come on, let's get this done.
But speeding it up isn't simple, is it? There was that quote from a Pentagon official in the New York Times.
Right, a pretty sobering take. That official basically warned that accelerating delivery would mean cutting corners, specifically removing a lot of the military things.
So you'd end up with just a
nice-looking airplane, as the official put it, one that wouldn't actually meet the core requirements of Air Force One.
Not really Air Force One, then.
Not in the functional sense, no. And the War Zone echoed this, too. They reported that faster delivery would mean compromises in areas that were previously considered non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable security features, presumably.
Exactly. It really highlights that tension. Do you want it fast or do you want it right? With all the security and operational capabilities it absolutely has to have.
Which brings us right back to this Qatari plane proposal.
Mm-hmm.
The Warzone's assessment seems pretty definitive. They say it's nowhere near ready to function as a proper Air Force One.
Their analysis was quite blunt, yes.
And they point out that if you did try to equip it with all the same specialized gear,
Right.
well, it would probably take even longer to prepare than the current ones.
And be far from free. That's the other key point.
Right, because you'd have to pay for all those modifications anyway.
Precisely. That initial free airplane appeal kind of evaporates when you consider the massive, complex, and very expensive retrofitting job required to bring any 747 up to Air Force One standards, especially one that wasn't designed for it from the start.
So the idea of it being a quick, cheap fix seems unlikely.
Very unlikely, based on that analysis.
But the Warzone did have another idea for the Qatari plane, something more pragmatic.
Yes, they did. And it's quite interesting. They suggested using it essentially as a source of spare parts.
Spare parts? Why?
Well, think about it. These specific parts for the Boeing 747-8 are apparently getting harder and harder to come by.
Oh, because they stopped making them.
Exactly. The production line shut down in 2023. So the supply is now finite.
Okay, I see.
And it's not just the two new Air Force One planes that need them. The article mentions there are 4 other 747-8s being converted for different military purposes.
So there's a growing demand for a shrinking pool of parts.
Correct. So having a whole 747-8 sitting there that you could cannibalize for spares, that could actually be incredibly valuable logistically. It could help keep the actual Air Force One fleet and those other military 747s flying safely for longer.
That's actually a really practical point. It might not be glamorous, but maybe more useful in the long run.
It makes a lot of sense from a maintenance and logistics perspective. Might save time and money down the line, ensuring the readiness of this specialized fleet.
Okay, one last point from the sources. The article mentions a quote from the former president's podcast where he kind of preempts criticism.
Ah, yes, the political comparison.
He said something like, if this involved Hunter or Joe Biden, the right would be going completely crazy. Which, I mean, it really just underscores how this whole thing is viewed through a partisan lens, right? And it shows an awareness of how this kind of donation from a foreign entity would typically be perceived, depending on who was involved.
It absolutely does. It highlights those deep-seated political calculations that are just, well, unavoidable indecisions at this level, even something that seems like just logistics.
So let's try and wrap this up. We're looking at a really complex picture here.
Definitely.
There's a clear need for a new Air Force One. The current ones are old.
Undeniably.
But the official replacements are stuck in delays, costing a fortune, partially due to that fixed-price contract.
Right. Huge delays and cost overruns.
And into this situation comes this offer, a donated plane from Qatar. which sounds good maybe on the surface,
The free plane idea.
but it's potentially problematic ethically and politically, and technically it seems it wouldn't be a quick or cheap solution anyway.
And it sparked all these political reactions pretty much along party lines.
So it really leaves us, and you listening, with a tough question.
It does. Considering everything, the absolute necessity of security for Air Force One, the massive financial aspects of both the official planes and this proposed donation, and just the unavoidable political heat surrounding it. What do you think is the most sensible path forward? What's the priority for the Air Force One fleet right now? What factors should really carry the most weight when making that call? Something to think about.